Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization, and today's quick tip is how to train for your fiber type. Are you fast twitch? Are you slow twitch? Are you a twitch that, no one really wants, and people walk back and forth down the street and you look up at them and they're like, man, get away from me, say? Maybe you're that fiber type. Let's find out. So, is it worth it? First question, and only question, to try to train to your fiber type as of middle of the year 2022 and our knowledge of the literature and access to equipment that can tell us our fiber type. Maybe. Here are some problems with fiber type specific training. And by that I mean like, yeah, man, I'm fast twitch, so only sets of 5s for me. Or man, my biceps are slow twitch, so I'm just doing sets of 20, 30. Maybe. But a few problems, 3 specifically. Problem number 1, it is insanely difficult to figure out what fraction of faster and slower fiber types any one specific muscle is in your body. Forget about your whole body, because fiber types are often quite muscle specific. You may have a higher proportion of slower twitch fibers in your chest, a higher proportion of faster twitch fibers in your biceps, and so on and so forth. Each muscle group in your body has a significant variation from your average in your body. So even knowing what average fiber type you are over your whole body may not really help you much with individual muscles, because you may be faster twitch on average, but your forearms are slower twitch. That helps in other regards. Am I raising my eyebrows enough? All right. But so you would assume that faster fiber type training works better for your forearms, and you would just be like not having bigger forearms. Nothing's happening. At some point you try super high reps and it actually works much better, and you're like, damn it, I guess there's no such thing as one fiber type for my whole body. So that's bullshit right away. Secondly, yes, there are fiber ratios in each muscle, but here's another piece of news. Most muscles have a relatively even mix of faster and slower twitch fibers. So when you ask like, hey, are your pecs fast twitch or slow twitch? The real actually way to ask that question is there a slight predominance of faster twitch fibers in your pectoralis major, or a slight predominance of slower twitch fibers? And what does slight mean? Is it 55-45? Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30? Maybe there's a way to tell, right? But there's not. Anything other than getting your muscle biopsied, which by the way only tells you in the biopsy site when they pull out a chunk of muscle and they say, oh, this is the fraction of fiber that's your muscle fibers that are faster twitch and slower twitch and everything in between, because remember, it's actually a spectrum. We know that for this part of your pecs, that's the case, but what about this part? We actually not really sure that holds. And certainly it's going to be relatively indicative, but maybe that's not indicative enough for you to really design your specific program. So what we can do is try to infer this from training. We say, okay, I'm going to train in a certain way, maybe for higher reps and for lower reps, assuming that lower rep training is more sort of representative of something that taxes the faster fibers, and there's some truth to that. And then higher reps are more representative of something that taxes the slower twitch fibers, and maybe there's some truth to that. And if my body responds better to one or the other, I know which fiber type I am. But hold on, there's tons of confounders there, making training estimates of fiber type really just not that ideal. Here's an example. Let's say your legs in squat exercise respond well to heavy loads, sets of 5 to 10, and not so well to sets of 10 to 20 or 20 to 30. And you've tried this out. Now, is that because your quadriceps are faster twitch and thus really prefer the heavier loading lower reps? Or is it because you're kind of out of shape and it's not that you don't have slower twitch fibers in your quads that make sets of 10 not so stimulative? It is that you're so out of shape that anything after 8 reps is such a huge fraction of cardiovascular demand versus muscular demand, and thus cardiovascular limiting factor versus muscular limiting factor. But the real reason you don't benefit much from sets of 15 is that you gas out before the muscle gets tired. And there's plenty of slower twitch fibers, maybe predominantly slower twitch fibers, but they're still smoking a cigarette waiting hold on a second, like your lungs just gave up. We didn't even have a chance to go close to failure and thus a chance to grow. So a lot of times when people say, oh, I'm fast twitch dominant because my body prefers low reps versus high reps, it is not very clear to most people in the know that really is something super dependable. In addition, people try to use bar speeds. People try to use failure approaches. So for example, bar speeds, if you move the bar really fast, maybe you are faster twitch, maybe, but bar velocity has something to do with your fiber type. It also has something to do with the state of your nervous system and the degree to which you are trained and your limb ratios and leverages. That's a lot of layers, and fiber type is one important part of that layer, but it's like a 5-layer cake, and fiber type may only account for 20 to 40% of that. Can you really discern fiber type from, when your error rate is 60 to 80%? Gee whiz, you might not be looking at what you think you're looking at. What about failure proximity? Some people will say, with some validity, that faster twitch individuals or people who have faster twitch muscles, when they approach failure, it'll be normal speed, and then the muscles get really tired really fast. They're very poor at handling fatigue, which is true, and they go, oh, and just back down. So there's not a place where you grind a lot and the shit slows down on you. At some point, it just falls on you. There's some validity to that, but there's also validity to the fact that a lot of the way people fail is down to a neurological causative explanation. It's the way your primary motor cortex works. It's the way your motor neurons are assembled at the particular margins. It's the way that your motor neurons interact with your muscles that may be the reason why you fail really fast instead of really slow. Yes, your fiber type is a component of that, but again, it may explain 20 to 40% of the variance, which means you have a 60 to 80% error rate in trying to infer fiber type just from how fast you approach failure. So there's some validity to it, but just generally fucking not enough for us to be like, yep, you're fast twitch, do sets of 5. I wish we had that level of insight from training, but we just don't. Point number 3, our last problem with trying to do fiber type training is a real doozy. There are actually a number of studies now, and the average insight from these studies on fiber type and different types of training, for example, examining whether or not heavier training for lower reps versus lighter training for higher reps grows the fast or slow fibers differently. As much as I don't like to admit this, I wish we could elucidate more of this sort of study design. Generally speaking, there doesn't seem to be much of a dependable difference. There may be a dependable difference, but it may be very, very small. What I'm saying is this. When we subject muscles with both faster and slower fiber types to lower reps, both the faster and slower types seem to grow relatively similarly to higher reps and vice versa, right? Now, some people grow better from higher reps than lower reps, but if you zoom in on some of those people, their faster fibers also respond really well to higher reps as well as lower reps. Not completely, but so much so that it might be sort of obscure the effect of fiber type specific responses altogether, assuming they exist at all. We think they exist, but they might not. The reality might be your faster fibers respond really well hypertrophy-wise from anything between roughly sets of 5 to sets of 30, taken close to failure, any sets like that. All the way from pretty fucking heavy, all the way to pretty fucking light. And it might be that your slower twitch fibers exactly or very similarly responsive to that, except less, right? It's like, this is rough. Taking a look at height and basketball ability, right? You got someone who's 6'7", and you're like, hey, you're really good at basketball. And you're someone who's 4'7", you look down at them and they're like, am I good at a different kind of basketball? Like, yes, gymnastics. You might just suck proportionally more at basketball ability. What are slower fibers really good at? Endurance work. We know that, but they don't hypertrophy much from endurance work. Their internal structure changes. They grow a ton of mitochondria, and they actually sometimes lose myofibrils so that they can't produce as much force per cross-sectional area as they used to, but they can produce a lower amount of force over and over and over and over. So you have to remember that the fiber types were not even designed by evolution to do like one for higher reps, one for lower reps, all sets of 5 to 30. That really is actually, faster fibers are just better at all that. Slower fibers, really, especially very slow twitch fibers, they're best not even at growing muscle. They don't grow much when they respond to heavy training. They're best at endurance adaptations, which faster fibers are not good at. So this whole idea that like a set of 30 is growing pure slow twitch, a set of 5 is growing pure fast twitch, and somewhere between 15 and 20 it's both, that's probably bullshit. A set of 5 all the way to a set of 30 probably really grows your fast twitch fibers pretty well. And as the faster twitch fibers are analyzed, and then we analyze the slightly slower twitch fibers and the intermediate twitch fibers and the slower twitch, and then all the way to the slow twitch, their growth response from sets of 5 to sets of 30 is lower, 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 lower on average. So the whole idea of fiber type specific training, sets of 5 to 30 might already be pretty fucking specific to faster fibers, and a growth program specific to slower twitch fibers just might not exist. Like a type of basketball specific to people at 4'7", if it's basketball, people who are 6'7" are just fucking better at it, right? Being 6'8", I can say these things with quite a bit of confidence. So, okay, fuck. Looks like maybe fiber type specific training doesn't work. And that's probably my general opinion on the matter. So are we just supposed to just train and forget about how things are responding and not try to alter our training to our demands? No. No, we are supposed to do that. But it's a better idea to just go by the stimulus proxies. What the fuck are those? Well, in any given rep range, sets of 5 to 10, 10 to 20, or 20 to 30, try all three of those rep ranges for a given exercise for a given muscle and see which one of those rep ranges gives you more of the following. A perception of an insane amount of tension in the muscle, or at higher reps, a perception of burn in the muscle. Some muscles, you do sets of like 5 or 6 and they just feel like they're fucking peeling out. Some muscles, you do sets of 5 or 6 and you're like, I don't know. I just feel inconvenienced. Some muscles with sets of 25 to 30, the burn in the muscle is the deepest, most painful thing you've ever felt. And you're like, holy fuck. And someone's like, is that training your forearms? You're like, I fucking sure hope so. My forearms are blowing up. With other muscles, you do a set of 25 to 30 and people are like, what do you think? Huge burn? You're like, I'm just tired. I just would like to not do this anymore. Right? Not a really great sign. Tension and burn. Pump. You do a set of 5, you get a massive pump, you're probably on the right track. You do a set of 30 for another muscle, you get a massive pump, you're probably on the right track. You do a set of 5 and a set of 30 and both give you great pumps, shit. So it sounds like you got no wrong answers, which absolutely can happen. Then it's disruption. You do a bunch of sets of 30 or 25 or whatever. You go home, you wake up the next day, someone's like, your quad's fucked up. And you're like, I don't know, man. They just feel flat and depleted and tired. They didn't get sore or nothing. On the other hand, you might go back and do sets of 8 for the quads. And the next day you can't get out of bed and you're super crazy DOMs, something fucking happened. So if you train your muscles, experiment with all the different rep ranges and find which combination, because it doesn't have to be one right answer, of rep ranges really gets that muscle a ton of tension or a ton of burn, gets that muscle a ton of pump for how many sets you have to do, and a crazy amount of disruption, which means fatigue and strength drop off and soreness. Whatever gets you the most of that is a proxy for how much stimulus you're getting for muscle growth. That's probably something good to go on. So when you say, oh, I'm doing lots of sets of 5s for my pecs, people be like, oh yeah, fast twitch. Your correct answer is like, maybe in part that's part of it, but all I know is sets of 5 for my pecs, fuck me in the ass. And sets of 25, just feel annoying and tiring. And if that's the case, that's how I would structure my training much more into which fiber type. Now, here's the thing. If there's a lot of correct answers, you're like, sets of 5 fuck up my quads, sets of 15 fuck up my quads, sets of 25 fuck up my quads, then great. All these things work. You can just vary them. For a few months, do sets of 5 to 10. For a few months after, switch exercises, do sets of 10 to 20. For a month or two after, do psycho sets of 20 to 30. You're going to get growth all the time. Your joints aren't going to be, aggravated in the same way, and you have time to back off the load and do high reps and stuff like that. That variation keeps things fresh and keeps you growing for a long time. So the point of this isn't to discover the one fucking rep range. Oh, sets of 12 for me. My pecs are sets of 12. My biceps, sets of 11. That's not the right answer. Ranges of effect that could be the entire thing from 5 to 30, or it could be like a normal distribution where it's like, oh, somewhere between 15 and 20 is great for, my back, but after, anything much higher, anything much lower is not great. It could even be a bimodal distribution where you're like, oh, for my quads, sets of 5 to 10 are really good. And also sets of 25 to 30 are really good. But I think it's 15 to 20, I don't know, something's off. My stimulus proxies, pump, burn, et cetera, they're just not as good. And that's totally valid. Follow your body's signs and do what seems to work best. And especially if you compare this with long-term results, like I got crazy pumps, crazy tension, crazy burn. I did that for 3 months doing these rep ranges and my quads fucking grew and I got a ton stronger. Hey, listen, fiber type or not, fiber types be damned, you're doing the right thing. That is my best advice to you. Please comment your fiber type in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time.